Alright, so I figured I'd make like a kind of little guide here for making a signature graphic. I'll do it for a baseball sig here. I got an image already, but I'll show you guys what I normally do for grabbing an image and cutting it. Well, I still gotta cut it, but so first off, start a new sig. Right now it opens default to clipboard. I have a preset saved called sig, 400 by 190, 400 by 200. It's also good. Sometimes I do 200 height, but the one I have set is 190, so that's what I'll use right now. I'll open a new file, just like that. And so if I was going to get a new image, I would just open up Google Images, making a sig for my own player. So search for Pavetta, and then you don't want to find like a small picture. It won't fit well in the sig, in the space you have. So I usually go either 1024 by 768 or 2MP, one of these two settings. I usually start with the higher setting. It's more restrictive, but if I don't find a good one of what I'm looking for, then I'll switch it to the smaller image and work with that. And you check a few. That's a good quality picture, so like you could use that one to make an interesting one. You want a good quality like free one, so like I would not use this. It's already like heavily edited. So you'd want to avoid something like that, or something like this, where the quality doesn't look as good. You can tell it's kind of pixelated in the image. It's still loading, but like it's not a very good quality. You got a lot of motion blur going on here. So like you want to avoid ones like that. But something like these two here are good, or that other one of him sitting down there is good too. Anyway, so the one I'm going to use is one I already have downloaded. So I'll use this one. And then, so you got the background in there that you don't want. Make a new background with your own different stocks and stuff. And so you just take the quick select tool, short hotkey is W. Make sure you don't want the magic wand, because that selects based on color. Just quick selects based on color in an area, so you get a go around rough outline of the player. And then you got some stuff like this. So if you hold Alt and click, you can see it changes from a plus to a minus in the middle there. The minus will deselect stuff you have, probably. And then the square brackets and curly brackets button up at the top beside the P, you can use those to shrink it or make it bigger, the area. And so then I just go around and deselect the area that has selected him, like his whole arm, just like that. Gloves, and you want to make sure you try and get as much of the bits and stuff as possible. So I'll usually leave out stuff like this. Like you can see right now, it'll delete the strings on the glove, but those are usually not noticeable, and a lot of times that stuff might get cut out anyway around the edges of the sig, because remember, this is a big picture and we're only using 400 by 200, and so you're going to shrink it down, and even a lot of the player will be off the edges of the sig anyway. And then so once I feel like it's a good cut, delete it, deselect. Just make sure there's nothing odd. Sometimes you get things where it doesn't look like anything selected, and it'll select like a line. Like it would select like maybe just a little line of pixels, like right along his arm and the sleeve joint or something, if you don't quite hit it with the thing. Oh, so yeah, so there you can see I missed. It selected the P on the hat. So Control Alt Z will undo. Control Shift Z is redo. So I'll just undelete it, come back to this, and then touch up the hat, maybe touch up there, and go back and delete it again. This one isn't actually a great picture to use either. You can see, when you zoom in here, you can see kind of the pixels along his arm. Right there you can see how it's kind of stepped and jagged. Now a lot of that, it's pretty minor, and the picture will shrink down quite a bit when you bring it into the SIG, and so with other effects and stuff, a lot of that will get hidden pretty easily. And then once it's done, I'll just go save as. Save it as a PNG. You'll always want to save it as a PNG because JPEG save a background, PNG does not save a background. So if you save it as a JPEG, the entire everything that's this gray and white checkered square will just become a solid white background, and you'll have to cut it out again. PNG doesn't save that, so if you ever wanted to use it again, you could just open it, drag out the render, and then I won't overwrite the JPEG. No need to. I saved it as its own PNG. And then we come in here. Smart objects, super useful. Convert it to a smart object so it keeps its detail. Shrink it up. Hold shift when you drag it by the corner so that it keeps the dimensions. If you don't hold shift, you can do this, and then you end up with a render that looks like that. So hold shift, drag it from the corner so that it keeps the same dimensions. And just figure out how you want it to look. If you hold Alt while you're dragging, it'll drag towards the center. It'll drag from both directions. If you don't hold Alt, it'll just drag in one direction. It'll drag it equally, like so the render will still have the same dimensions, same height and width ratio. But if you hold Alt, it'll do it in both directions, so you might not necessarily have to move it around. So something like that is probably pretty good. Pressing V is the hotkey for just the select button, which is easy, and then you can use the arrow keys to just bump it around a bit until it gets where you want it. I always delete the blank layer that it defaults to. When you create a new file, it automatically creates an empty layer. Don't need it, so just delete it. I have my stuff organized how I want. So I have a bunch of saved backgrounds. Sometimes backgrounds, different stocks. I'll select ones that I have used before. Sometimes I won't. Let's see. Or if I want a new one, I'll go back to Google Images and I don't know, search for. This is going to be a SIG for my player, so I'm on the Railroaders abstract purple background. I use the same settings, so it's still the 2 megapixels, so I have lots to work with. These are kind of light, especially for background. Like, that's not bad. It's a little weird, though. I don't think it fits a SIG very nicely. That's not bad, but you kind of want to avoid individual stuff like that. Yeah, I don't like a lot of these. Some of them are too light, so I'm just going to change this and go search for a dark purple instead. And that gets something a little more interesting like this. Don't do that. Open image in a new tab, so you get the actual image and you don't end up saving the smaller one. Yeah, I'm going to skip on that one. You can see, especially over here, you can see it's a little low res, even though it says 1920 by 1080. You can kind of see the lines of the pixels in it. It looks fine here, but... And I mean, other stuff goes without saying. You want to avoid stuff with a watermark. Sometimes, if the picture is big enough, you can maybe get away with using a watermark one. Obviously you don't want to. But yeah, if it's a big enough size, this would be way too small. You could use like the space in here between the watermarks or something. But anyway, yeah, it's just important to make sure you get the right quality of images and the right kind of images. This one's an interesting one. It's got a bit of a watermark here, but the rest of this is clean. So that's one that could easily be used. I'll save it in my backgrounds. Yeah, and then you end up with stuff like this that you gotta be careful of. So it says 5400 by 3600, but you open that in a new tab and it's still 275 by 183. Yeah, skip that. Sometimes you can check the images on the website. Yeah, so it does have a watermark in there. I don't think that's... yeah, not an image. Yeah. Otherwise that was a nice one, but... purple is kind of a tricky one to work with, so I got a few purple in here that I'll pull out. And a lot of times, you can fairly easily change the colors of stuff, so I'll open those 3 purple ones. With the hue and saturation layer, you gotta be careful, obviously. Some colors don't turn into other colors very easily. But that's usually a good option for using something if you can't find the right color that you want. The right kind of image in the right color that you want. You can always tweak the color of a different image. This one's one of my usual go-tos, so I'll use that one. It's red, you know. I'll do it in here just to show you. I won't save it here. But so you go reds, you select your reds, and then you can drag this bar and it changes it to different colors. So I want it to be purple. Ta-da. Now Utah purple. Up the saturation, so that makes it either gray or more vibrant purple. You can see it change in there. And then this changes it to black or white. So black pulls a lot of the color out of it. White really washes it out. Sometimes you get nice details in the middle. Usually I won't touch brightness very much when changing the color of something. Sometimes I'll shift it a little bit, so I'll shift it there to the dark so that some of this stuff stands out a little more. Since I don't want to save that over this image, I'll just drag it into this one and use it there. Yeah, so that's something that you don't want to do. You don't want to let it happen, but I'll show you how to fix that in a second. So for my background, I'll probably start this at the very back, and then I'll kind of layer stuff as it goes. I'm going to turn that off because it looks dumb right now. Holding Alt and the scroll wheel, zoom in and out. Shrink that down. Something like that. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, let's get rid of some of that white back there so that we instead just have more of the purple. Let's Let's use this one. And then, so that would just overwrite the other one, but you got all kinds of different layer options and how it is visible through different layer. Normal is just 100%. You just see what it is. You don't see anything behind it. But if you go like multiply, you'll get some of the stuff behind it. So then you create a whole different kind of background effect. Or you can kind of wash out some of the other stuff or make it into some kind of combination. Some of them are better than others. Overlay is usually a solid option. Oh, that one's pretty nice. Hard light. Usually hard light, soft light, that kind of area. This section here is usually the better ones. Lighten and screen are also useful. Depends what kind you have. I'll end up using lighten or screen on the other thing with the black background when I pull that in. But for layering backgrounds like that, I think I'll go with overlay. That's a pretty nice one there. Alright, and so then that's building your layers. I still got this one here that I'll add after. But first, you gotta get stages so that it looks like you've actually taken a picture of something, so you have your focus on a certain thing. And when you focus on one thing, other things in the background, like when you're taking a picture, the background is more blurry, the foreground is a different level of blur than the image that you actually have, and that you're trying to, the subject that you're focusing on. And so I'll just do a quick group from layers, so group those all together. Always duplicate the group, don't overwrite it. Convert it to a smart object so that it creates a filter layer by default. Always use Gaussian blur. Motion blur works too. That's what I used when I first started making them. But I find Gaussian blur is better for like an even spread of blur across. So you can see 2.7 is high. It's not bad though, so usually I go somewhere around that range. Between 1 point something and 2 point something. 2.1, sure. And then, so yeah, if you create a smart object and create a filter on it, it will default create a smart filter here. And then you can use the brush with black and basically erase the layers. You can see it's filling in the mask here. So you can use that to unblur stuff. I usually set my brush to 40% so that I can do different things. So the face, I'll usually make it around 100%. Same with the upper body and stuff. And then I'll use maybe one around there. Eraser, you can erase it, you know, to undo some of the unblurring. So I set it down to 20%. And we'll unblur some of this, or reblur some of it, rather. Get the background, keep the background blurry, because that's, you want that out of focus. What I actually didn't do, which I should, because why not, is modify the render at all. Baseball is kind of annoying for it because you don't really use logos, so you can't like easily put a logo across there. Replacing a logo looks nice when you can do it, but replacing the text like that kind of sucks because it's like its own text logo, and a lot of them we don't have that. So like I can't erase the Phillies text there and add this Utah logo. So we got this, right, like I can't erase Phillies and just put the Utah there. So I'll change the color sometimes, usually. Hue and saturation layer. When you edit the render layer, you do have to be careful. That's a lot trickier, especially if you're messing with red or yellow. So red, I want to change it to purple so that the text and the hat The stripes are Utah yellow, but you can see it changes all the skin. The skin is a combination of reds and yellows usually. And so you get this kind of purple looking monster dude here. Make that slightly more purple and then darken it up. There, and so then you'll have to go into the mask again. When you do the hue and saturation layer, it automatically creates the mask. Take your brush, change it to 100% because you don't want any of his arm to look purple. And then you're just going to erase on the arms, and then you'll go do the face. You don't want to accidentally, so you can see I erased some of the purple on there. So shrink the eraser down and get the purple back on the glove. Be careful not to touch the stripe on the sleeve. It's going to happen here. So I'll just erase that quickly. So it erased the stripe on the sleeve, but I can go back in, change the eraser to 100. Zoom in, shrink it down, and then I can color over the stripe, just the stripe, and it's much easier to get just that than to get the whole arm. And it'll be more the same here. Just burn through that. Alright, so there. It still says Phillies, but it's Utah purple now. You got the stripes, and you got the logos on the gloves, and you got the hat brim. The hat logo is pretty hidden there. If it wasn't hidden, I might try and change it, but you can barely see the logo anyway, so it's not worth trying to change it. And, yeah, the Phillies, like I said, not worth trying to change it on baseball because we don't really have that kind of logo. Right, so I'd already made the blurring one. I don't want to erase the blurring and do it all over again. So I just reduplicate the first group, convert it to a smart object, and then I can just drag the smart filters off the first one, the original, onto the second one. Excuse me. And now it's purple and blurred. Right, and so then I'll use Topaz Labs. Now this is a paid one, Topaz Labs. I think it was like $50 or something. I don't remember. But I had it open if you noticed. This one's free usually. Nick Collection. It used to have an older version that was free. You can still download the old version for free. This page here, it's got the address there. You can download the old free version, or you can download a 30-day free trial of the new one. If you're looking for something free. I paid for the Topaz Labs. A lot of times on just something like this, I'll just go for a little clarity, crisp it up a little bit so it looks a little better. And then I would bring in something like this, shrink it down, something like that works. Now this is important. So I've got this layer, and if I change the red to the purple. If I go screen or lighten, it's kind of hidden there, but it changes him to purple again. So what you want to do is on this hue and saturation layer that's specifically for changing the red to the purple, you click this little button down here, if it'll give me the thing. This adjustment affects all layers below. You click it and it affects just the one layer below it, just the first layer before. So that means it's now just affecting the one thing there, and it's not affecting his skin anymore. So lighten and screen are good for getting away the black background, but that's hiding it quite a bit. So let me see what else we can mess around with. So linear dodge there, that one's not bad. The purple really isn't standing out here. Yeah, And then you want to avoid the ones at the bottom. Never found them to be useful. All these 8 here, they suck. Overlay is decent. It's too dark everywhere else though. So yeah, I think it'll be linear dodge. Let's see if I can mess with this a little bit more. See if I can get a bit more of a intensity going on there. Let's flip it over and go that way. I don't know, something like that. I don't know. Let's go with 1. We'll stick with just 1. I think that works best. No, save it. And so then we're on to text sometimes. Actually, I will do this again. Group from the layers. It ends up creating a bunch of chain groups, but that's fine. It means you can go back and change something if it's not right. Convert it to a smart object again. And I'll just blur it again. Now that it's got the foreground in it, so you got the foreground, the render, and the background, and you want to blur them differently. And so I will unblur them. So the background has now been blurred twice. The render has been pretty much unblurred, and then I will actually go down to 20% and undo some of this foreground blurring here. So you see, so now you have like a bunch of different levels of focus, mostly on the face and the upper shoulders of the render. You see the background separate from the foreground, all that good stuff. And then T for text. So if you're downloading text, I would suggest downloading text. The default ones are not great. Dafont.com. And you got a bunch of different ones. You can sort by different fancy or other stuff. Usually you want to avoid ones that have too much going on. Curly. You got these. These don't particularly make for great SIGs, in my opinion. Eroded, distorted, destroy, horror. Those are usually decent. I would avoid something like Urban Jungle with this. It just ends up looking bad when you try and add some effects on top of the text. All the white and black, different layers. It gets a little weird. Headliner number 45. That's pretty good. Smile and Wave, not bad, probably. Other stuff, you can go with different styles, Mexican, Roman, or Greek, and you get this kind of stuff. You can go square letters. That's decent. I usually find square stuff like that to be good for like a subtext to the name. So Aldo the Apache might be something that you would use if I said like Utah Railroaders under the name. Script, like handwritten, you could use that for like a signature one. So like this one, either of these would be interesting. I don't know if I got it from here. I must have. Taken by Vultures is the one I'm going to use. Yeah, this one here. A nice signature. So that's the one I'm going to use here. This is one of my favorite. There's lots of different ways you can make text. This one is one of my favorite ones. It's pretty quick and easy. So Colben Fairborn. It's probably a little big. 80. Different fonts have different text sizes too, so like this is 80 and it gives you that size of text. If I make another text over here with a different font, Viridian College 80, it's massive. It's absolutely huge, right, compared to the other 80. So keep that in mind. White is usually not a bad font color choice. In this case, though, yeah. And then so for this style, so you get your nice little signature there. I'm actually going to change it to like a very white purple. Actually I want that. So there's no way I would pick exactly the same spot if I went and did the same thing to change the last name. So I'll just copy the hex code here, Control C, double click that, click there, it's already selected, boom. Easy. And so duplicate the layers, convert it to a smart object, and then we'll go filter, blur, back to that Gaussian blur. Change that one to 2.7. That's why it was on 2.7. Do the same thing. It gives you a nice little glow around it. I'm actually going to change it back to white though. The purple doesn't stand out well enough here. White, you don't need to copy white or black. It's always FFFFF. Black is 000. Don't right click on the thumbnail of the thing, it won't do it. Filter Gaussian blur, yes. Minimize those. So I'm not super happy with how that's placed. So I'm gonna move it up there, over there, and I will move the first name over there so that the L lines up with the F. Nah. Make it so the B's line up. If you hold shift and drag something, it will move it. It will lock one of the two directions. So if you hold shift and move it to the right, then you can only move something left and right. It won't move up and down at all. I don't like that there. So I don't like that there. Nope. And then just move the arrow keys around. That's not bad. I like that there. And then group, duplicate group, readjust the topaz, convert it to a smart object, and then this is where I'll add usually a final effect from topaz. Bold is usually an interesting one. You can see it's quite an effect there right now. You can fix that though pretty easily. Dramatic, not bad. Dramatic 2. You can see you kind of want to avoid this kind of stuff. You got some weirdness going around the name. Gritty really goes gray and white. It's not bad though, actually. Let me see what I can do with that. So again, you can mess with the smart filters layer to affect stuff, but I often, when adding that final effect, will just drop the opacity of the layer down so you get some of the highlights and stuff, but you don't get the full detail of it. So I'll just do this so that you can see this one at 100 versus 50 versus 0, 0, 50, 100. 100, probably a little too much, though that's not bad. I wasn't going for a grayed out sig. So 50 is pretty good. You can definitely see the difference. It darkens up the background a little bit. It darkens up other stuff. 100, too much though. So then you can look at it like, that's not bad. I would submit that. I'd use it. I'd be happy with it. Sometimes though, I like to mess with the lighting effects differently. So levels here, it'll darken up the darks a little bit more. If you move the black towards the middle, if you move the gray towards the blacks, it'll lighten it. If you move the gray towards the whites, it'll darken it. If you move the white towards the middle, it'll brighten it. Give that a bit of a glow. Yeah, that's not bad. And sometimes I'll mess with the curves as well, which also affects the lighting. Like, that's a nice dark. Generally, if you do curves, keep it to 1. You can do 2, but be very careful with it, otherwise you end up with that. And then maybe brightness or contrast. Contrast is usually pretty good. I'll up the brightness a bit. Yeah, so you can see all of those. Let me group that. Okay, right. Come on, get in the group. So you've got that with the lighting changes, or that without. This is what it looked like originally. I added the Topaz Labs, and then I added the lighting changes. That's with just the lighting changes. That's the Topaz Labs. Yeah. And so there. Got my signature sig. And, yeah. Maybe, I'll make a different guide sometime with like a different kind of render, different sport, so that I can show you decent and work with a jersey change, and I'll use a different kind of text style. Jersey change, logo change, all that fun stuff. But yeah, that's where I will stop it. Thank you for watching, and hope this helps. I really do. Hope this helps you guys looking at there, wondering how to make your graphics a little bit better.